I usually have, we're now live. Hello, everyone. Jess Claire here with the incredible Cody McAuliffe. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it's all good. Cody McAuliffe, perfect.
Oh, yes. You nailed it. This awesome human. He is an entrepreneur, an incredible entrepreneur in the leadership space. Also the creator of the Flow formula. And look, while we wait for everyone to jump on, why don't you introduce yourself? Because I'm not going to do as good a job as it is you are. You've done loads of stuff. You've coached people in the government. You've coached many 6-7-figure entrepreneurs. So yeah, why don't you introduce yourself? How did you end up getting here?
I've done a lot of things in my time. Started out as a coach about 10 years ago and transitioned through different ways to be able to get to where I am today, through business coaching, through mindset coaching, through life coaching, through all of these different areas, into the leadership and flow space by actually just starting to dive deeper into that experience. So where I am today is just a reflection of all the unfoldings of all of the experiences that I've had throughout my life, one thing leading to another, by actually just going down that journey. And what that's meant is I've been able to coach some absolutely amazing human beings over the years, from 6- and 7-figure business owners, 8-figure business owners, federal members of parliament, world champion athletes, like all of these different people. And it's just been an amazing experience and a great unfolding from where I started to where I am today. And I still have a lot more in the tank. So it's an exciting time as well.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I would love to have been on those conversations with people in Parliament. Politics is something I love. I plan to one of my goals is to be the coach to Donald Trump. Yeah. So I would, yes. So I would have, I would have loved those conversations. But today, and thank you for being on here, Cody. Leadership is really important to me too. So that's something both of you and I very much have in common. We both do work in the leadership space. You also run the group, the Leadership Container, I see as well, and teach people about how to, access to being what you call superhuman. And so we're going to talk about, we'll talk about a lot of things, and no doubt a lot of that will come out. So thank you for being here. For those jumping on, please, if you are jumping on, please leave a message. If you say hello, we've got Jennifer here. I love this thing. Say hello. Hey, Susie, leave us a message. Tell us what you think about anything that we are saying. If you're engaged in something that we are talking about and you want to ask something about it, please let us know. Hello, Diana. We're really interested in having a open conversation about this. It's an exploration of, how often are we really being ourselves? I've talked to Cody. We've both agreed we're not gurus on any topic. We do not have the answers. Hey, Susie. Hey, Ash. Nice to see you. And we don't have the answers, but we definitely both are very committed to and very interested in exploring things that we know get in the way of our own leadership and expression. So that's what this is about. Okay. And we've got, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So anyway, I'm going to ask you this question. Like when I said to you, how often are we really being ourselves? And we sort of played with it a bit. I was like, can we say it like this? Can we say it like this? And you pointed straight to the masks and the impact, the cost of the mask. So tell me why that resonated with you so much, where you said there's a real cost to wearing masks. What was that about?
When we look at a lot of what's going on in the world, a lot of it comes back to the understanding that when we're not actually being who we truly are at our core essence, and when I talk to that about based on people's epigenetic expression. When we're not aligned with what our biology is actually built for, what actually happens is we create this internal battle with ourselves, and that can then flow out to the rest of the world. So when we're looking at the understanding of us being in this act, wearing this mask, all of these different components, this is something which we all do obliviously in most instances. We're completely unaware of how much we're actually wearing this mask. We're completely unaware of how much we're actually doing it. And what we're really looking at and pointing to is the awareness of how can we actually know when we're wearing a mask and when we're actually being who we truly are at our core essence. When are we playing from our conditioning? Where are we playing from who we're trying to be seen as? When are we playing from that? And when are we playing from who we truly are? And as we look at the impact of wearing that mask or putting on that act, that just creates disconnection with ourselves, which then reflects out to any other relationship that we have. Our relationship with ourselves starts to diminish. And then that means that we start to create sabotage mechanisms in external relationships. So when we chunk it like right down to the core of it, when we're actually being true to ourselves and being fully real and raw, then in that place, we can actually start to connect with people on a deep level. And when we're outside of that place, we're in this world of being seen as something, being perceived as something that we want to be perceived as, because we think that that thing is the thing that would allow us to be enough, to be loved, to be all of these different things, when the reality is that's an internal game which we're playing out individually. And when we can actually just return to that understanding that we're either in our core essence, in our truth, based on what's actually going on for us, or we're putting on an act, the next thing that we look at in that instance is, well, how do we determine the difference?
Yeah. So, no, it's a good question. Hello, Zarina. It's actually a really good question. So how do you, because I prefer to give people access, right? Because obviously you do the work first. If you're going to go out there and lead to people and talk about this, which I know you do a lot of, it's like, how do you access that? What do you notice about your own masks that you use?
There's a couple of different kinds of masks that we can wear, and it's all based on, it's all categorized into what we call self-deception. So self-deception has different flavors. It comes up in denial, complacency, and identifying as the master. And it's interesting that you started with, we're not gurus. It's instantly we're creating ourselves being a student in that instance, so we can actually learn and evolve rather than being on the pedestal. Because if someone's on the pedestal, then someone also is in the pit. So it creates this world of sabotage and things of that nature. So when we're looking at the mask, the act that we're putting on, we're looking at, all right, which one of these three categories does it actually fall into? Is it denial? Is it complacency? Or is it identifying as the master? And as we start to do that internal work, we can actually start to determine where we've actually been in alignment and where we haven't been in alignment by doing that internal work and that self-leadership that allows us to actually be with people when they're in their denial, when they're being complacent, when they're identifying as the master, to be able to create that awareness for them and actually create a conversation with them to be able to start to develop that new level of self-awareness. So yeah, when we can create that new level of self-awareness and that understanding of what's in alignment, what's not in alignment, then everything begins to shift for us through that foundational point of self-awareness. Without that self-awareness, we can't actually get to that point of self-expression. It's a process to be able to get around to that. And that first component is the awareness of, all right, am I actually in denial right now? And even just asking that question, is this actually the truth, or is this something that I want it to be so I can be seen in a certain way? Is it something that I'm...
Sorry, keep going.
Is it something that I feel is wrapped up in my worth by being seen as this? And this is one of the key things that we start to see in this day and age with the act that we put on through social media. It's a snapshot of what our actual lives are. You have a snapshot of my face right now. You don't see my track pants below this nice shirt that I'm wearing. You don't see all of the other things that are going on behind the scenes. And when we only see that snapshot, we miss the majority of the picture. We miss everything that's going on behind the scenes because we want to be seen in a certain way. Even as we show up on a live, we show up in a certain way. There are components of where we're actually bringing that realness and that rawness into it by actually truly sharing what is going on for us on a feeling level. And then that's where we start to access that point of actually being with what's actually going on with us. Because if it's just in intellectualization, if it's in projection, if it's in any of those things, we're not in the realm of being real and raw. We're in the realm of putting on an act. And one of the things that we start to notice is with authenticity is a lot of people will now manufacture authenticity. It's like, I need to be an authentic leader. So I'm going to manufacture it. I'm going to bring the tears to my presentations so that I can connect with the audience on an even deeper level. And then that's not actually being real. It's being a really good actor. And yet when we're an actor, it actually drains all of our energy because it's not who we truly are. It's us putting on this mask that instantly creates this world of internal turmoil for us, which then shows up out in the world.
It's actually interesting you say that. I once saw a comment, a meme that said, when you can fake inauthenticity, you've nailed life. I was like, the irony of that is crazy. I just realized too, it's exactly what you're saying, right? It's still a mask. It's like, oh, now, and that's what we are as human beings. We're really good at getting used to pretending and finding ways to pretend better that people like as well. I've just realized I've got this new platform, StreamYard, and I've just gone onto my page and seen there's all these comments and they're not coming up here, so I can't see everything. So I just wanted to acknowledge everyone who's jumped on. Hello, Linda, Haley, if you're still on, Michelle, Talita, Sky, Kimberly, Jackie, Chris, Lorna, Janetta. Please leave us a comment. Hello, Nicole, Danelle as well, and manufactured on authenticity, Chris says. I know, right? I don't know why I can't see all the comments. They don't seem to all be coming up. I'm getting used to this new platform. It looks really cool, but you know, it's not.
That's what it's all about. It's being seen to look perfect, right?
I know.
And the little screen, and then all of these tiny little things in the background that we try and hide. And that's just a perfect example of like someone actually sharing what's going on with them. It's where we're like, all right, this is actually what's going on, and this is what's coming up in my body right now, and this is how I'm actually sharing it. That becomes a perfect example of where we can actually just be real with what's actually going on with us, rather than trying to change all of these different things and be like, oh, it's all perfect, all of these different things, when inside we're like, okay, this is not how I envisioned it to be, and then just communicating from that place. So amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. This is literally how I ran my life. I run my life. It's interesting that you call it out, right? As it's something I've noticed as well. I've almost intentionally, and I have a practice to intentionally call out, I am the antithesis of a polished, perfect professional. I refuse to live life worrying about getting it right. And that actually takes something for me to do that. It's not easy. It's not like I wake up in the morning going, today I'm going to be authentic. And I'm always authentic. I actually have to catch myself, and I've got to practice for catching myself when I'm drawn to want to say something that makes me look better. And also at the same time, the paradox for me, I'd be interested to see what you think, is the paradox for me is I know that things looking good and polished and professional actually appeal. So it's like this constant dance I'm in, that I've got this thing called, if I have a look at it, got this little thing, what I'm doing here. It's all pretty and purple, and it's got my logo on it, and, it's got it all, looks great. I know that appeals to people to come into this conversation from all my brand and marketing background, right? So I'm like, okay, this is going to appeal because this conversation is important. And at the same time, we're talking about authenticity, which is all of it, like all of that kind of conversation. So how do you reconcile that, Cody?
I love the quote by Scott F. Fitzgerald, which is the quote is, coming to me now, the indication of a high rate intelligence is your ability to be able to hold two opposing thoughts in mind without going insane. So when we can hold both sides of that paradox, then we can actually just be with what that is. Because currently we live in a society where it's more seen and needed than ever to look good. apparently.
Yeah.
So we look good on social media, we look good on all of these different things because that allows people to connect to us because we're visual beings. So there's this component of ensuring that we can look good while actually being who we truly are. Now, if you were to choose colors that were something that you didn't necessarily like, but you wanted to be seen in a certain way, then that becomes an inauthenticity component of it. But if it's something that resonates with you, just even based on the color scheme, then we can actually come from that place of understanding that. And based on where society is right now, if we were truly raw and real to the fullest extent, then we would all walk around naked. And if someone was to do that, then that would not look good right now. But we wear all of these clothes of all of these things of looking good. This becomes part of my core identity of how I want to be seen based on the clothing that I wear.
Yeah.
So it comes back to what are all of our identities which are actually wrapped up in who we want to be seen as, and actually starting to look at, is it because I want to be seen as this person because that's who I am, or because that's who I'm not, but I want to be perceived that way because I think I will get a secondary benefit from that? Will I get a secondary benefit of being more loved or being enough?
Yeah, it's actually a good point. I'm now thinking, did I get this platform just to be, what should I do it for? You know, because someone, I think this is great. Oh, hello, Amanda Burnett. This is great. The only thing, it only appears to some people. So Sky, which, you know, is interesting. Sky, I love her. She's like a truth bomber in my comments. I do love it. It is saying it only appeals to some people. And I'm going, I think I got this platform because, you know, I know that what engages people, and I must say it is definitely from my background, brand marketing, strategy background in financial services, right? So it's like color pulls people in. Now, my color is purple and pink, and I'm like a lollipop. Like, I just freaking love bright colors. So they're definitely me. And, you know, you can see me in the background. I'm in like bright blue, all of that. So that's definitely me. But my intention was that I'm like, people will need to see this. This needs to be engaging. So it's not that I want to be seen in a particular way. It's like, how do I get people engaged in this conversation? You know, I know for myself that I wear masks, and I know I have to interrupt them. And I know that I wake up and want to look good. And I know right before a live, I'm nervous and I think about the things I want to say, and then I just give it all up and just go. And so how do I get people engaged in this conversation so they can see themselves in me? You know? And then, you know, is that inauthentic? Because I want it to look good. It does look good. It does look good. I don't know. What is it?
Yeah. So part of the paradoxical nature about authenticity is that we can, for true authenticity, we can only ever be authentic about how we've been inauthentic. So what that means is when we actually communicate our motives in that instance, these are my motives for choosing pink. These are my motives for all of these different things. And that's where the authenticity shows up, because we're looking at our motives and our intention behind that, and also communicating, all right, well, I'm looking good for this reason, and I'm playing the game for this reason, for this outcome. When we can actually bring our intention to that, and that is a truth of intention that we can actually feel in our body rather than be something that's in our head to look good or be seen a certain way, then we can actually start to shift that. When we return to that knowing and the understanding that for true authenticity, we can only really be authentic about how we've been inauthentic. So when we have that in mind, that's the paradoxical nature of it, which we can actually start to go, okay, cool. Now that I'm aware that I was wearing that mask, now I can actually start to go, okay, that's not who I am. Now I can make another choice. Alternatively, I can be like, no, I'm going to wear that mask till I die. I'm going to lie until I die. I'm going to take that to the grave. We have that choice to create that awareness and choice to be able to utilize that new information and go, okay, cool. I'm now aware of my motive, of my intention behind that. How can I step outside of that and step into that true level of ownership, responsibility, and authenticity, so that I can actually just own what is true for me? Because a lot of people will continue down the path of being seen a certain way, that it instantly creates this world of sabotage and sabotage for them so that they end up just sabotaging themselves. So
yeah, and I've got some great comments here as well. I don't want to lose them, but I want to pick up on what you said about being inauthentic. I think that was great. Chris is saying, yes, authenticity is attractive. I agree. I'm a big fan of authenticity. In fact, I think I keep remaining single because I'm like looking for someone who is. And hello, Jackie and Sky. I don't like on-screen graphics. Very distracting. So, I mean, that in itself, and Sky said this as well, she's like, I can't stand this platform. So she's like, they're complaining about this stupid platform that I think really looks good anyway. And so hello, Dennis. And I used this platform yesterday. They couldn't see all of my comments as the audience member. Didn't show anyone. Yeah, it is. I can't see everyone's comments actually on the screen. I can't even put them on there. So it's definitely in its initial stages. I think the thing I like is that I can flash things on the screen. There's something about that appeals to me, particularly for like this, like being able to go, how often are you really being yourself and drawing back the attention? Because sometimes when I'm talking to someone like you, we go off on tangents. Like we have these thought discussions and we're going off and we can't even remember what we're talking about. So it draws attention. And yes, the on-screen graphics is probably me. They don't need to be so bold. I've just made them that way. Yeah, I'll show you. I can actually change them just so you know. Let's have a look. You can change them so they don't look so bloody massive and crazy here. So that's actually me. That's made it look like that. Just so you know, it's not anyone else. I don't even know. I'm not going to go into it now. But anyway, you can change it.
Perfect.
Flash your boobs then. Thanks, Mona. Where did that come from?
Talking me or you? Okay.
Yeah, that's right. I think this Lorna wants to see your boobs, Cody. He's got great boobs. He's got really great boobs. They're like muscly and everything. Jackie, your partner's here too. She loves it. Inauthenticity. Talk about that, because I remember when I heard that. I mean, I know what you mean, but it's like I remember when I first heard that. I was like, what does that even mean? We're never inauthentic, because everyone says to me all the time, I'm just being myself. I'm just being myself. And I remember thinking that too. Before I really started to discover where I wasn't being myself, so I started that kind of thinking of where am I not, I used to think everything was myself. I used to think being a bully was being myself. I used to think being justified in being a jerk to people was being myself. And it wasn't really. But so expand on what you mean by inauthentic. How does that look?
Inauthenticity is that point where we're wearing that mask to be seen a certain way. So a lot of the time, we want to be seen a certain way. And what that looks like is we have this filtering process. So as we were talking about before, some people like this platform, some people don't like this platform. So when we're looking and diving into that, we're really looking at, all right, I want to be seen a certain way, but to who? Who is it that I want to be seen a certain way to? Who do I want to impress? Who is it that I need to be seen in this certain way for? And when that really comes back to is, in most instances, because the first relationship that we develop is our parents, it's filtered through that. Our relationship with our mum and our dad, whether we actually meet them or not, becomes the filtering process for how we create our model of the world. That starts our conditioning process to move away from what our true nature is into what is conditioned into us. So when we're looking at this concept of inauthenticity, we're going against what our innate nature is. We're going against that because we need to put on an act to be seen a certain way. We need to look good to our parents or something like that, or one of our friends or our partner, or all of these different things. So we actually go away from what our truth is in our body. And one of the ways that we tune into that is actually just tuning into our body. Is this actually true for me in my body? Because if it's just like, oh, that's just how I am. Okay, cool. That's probably just something that's playing out in your head, in your mind, which is part of that act. So when we can actually question each of these things, if I can question wearing this shirt and my motives behind it and my intention behind it, then I can start to go behind that and go, okay, where am I actually coming from in this instance? Am I coming from truth, or am I coming from being seen a certain way? And when we can actually start to go into that questioning and that inquiry around our intention, around our motives, that's when we can start to actually find all of the areas where we're in that mechanism of self-deception. And the natural tendency is for our ego to come in and to be like, all right, well, that's just the way that the world is. This is how we have to play the game. This is how I have to be shown up. And then if we go behind that and go, okay, what is my intention here? What is my motive behind this? Is that aligned with what is actually true for me? Or am I trying to be seen a certain way? Am I trying to get a secondary benefit from that? Because when we're looking to get a secondary benefit, we're often being inauthentic. If we're doing it for the sake of that is actually what's true, we're not actually looking at getting that secondary benefit from it, and then we can actually just return to, okay, what is true for me? Because I'm not getting a kickback from my ego on the other side of that. Every mechanism of identity that we have gives us this internal feedback from our ego, which makes us feel good in some way, gives us this little hit, which becomes addictive. So when we're looking at that, we're looking at all the secondary benefits. What's the second thing that I get out of that, rather than just being true to what I am? Because if I can get that little kick, that little feel-good mechanism deep inside of me, then I'm going to do that more than actually being in my truth, because that can hurt people sometimes. That can trigger people sometimes. And I don't want to be the one that actually creates that. And when we can actually get to the point of actually being okay with what is actually true for us, regardless of what is actually going on for anyone else, then we can actually just be in our true, fully authentic expression of who we are, because we can actually know what our motive is. And our motive is coming from a place of unconditional love for all of the people that we come in contact with in our life. And that inherently gives other people permission to actually be authentic too, even though that may be triggering to them.
Yeah. It's awesome what you're saying. I love it. It's interesting. I was just thinking, when did I start doing this? I mean, I did an awesome course that taught me about what you're saying about the act. And I think you've done part of that course before as well. Is that where you sort of started getting exposed to it? Was it through the personal professional development, or did you, like, how do you access that for yourself every day? What's a practice that you use to go, am I trying to look good? Because I remember not knowing I was even doing it, right? I was like, the way that I know now, and I'd be curious to think what you think about this, is the way that I know now is that I experience, it's almost like when I get triggered, I know that there's some other motive there. And when I say triggered, I mean frustrated, like anything that sort of takes you out of that freedom to just say things that you want to say, where you kind of have to get a bit strategic and you're kind of fighting intellectually, or you going into what I call a right-wrong argument about something. That sort of indicates that there's something, you would say, inauthentic, or there's some sort of pretense, or there's something happening where you have to pretend or be seen in a particular way. That's my indicator now that that's happening. And before, that was sort of normal. Like getting triggered, being annoyed, getting frustrated, telling people about it was sort of normal. So I don't know, I'm just thinking as we're discussing that, what's your practice for that?
The two best ways to be able to do that is, number one, get a mirror, which is normally like a coach, someone who can mirror back to you the things that you're actually doing. Because when that is mirrored back to you, then you're like, oh, is that actually what I'm doing? Am I actually coming from this place? I didn't really notice that was the impact of all the things that I was doing. I didn't see the impact of everything that was actually going on. I was just in my behavior in that instance. I wasn't looking at where that was coming from. So the mirror becomes the first way that we can do that. And then the second way that we can start to do that is coming from a place of just self-inquiry. It's actually asking those questions of ourselves. More often than not, we answer our questions, and yet how often do we question our answers? These things which are automatically coming up for us are just reactions. They're reacting to certain things. There are unconscious patterns. So we need to actually take a step back and go, okay, that's how I reacted. That was unconscious. That was automatic. That was the pattern that I was playing out. Okay, is that actually the truth for me? Or is that just a pattern that I've learned over a period of time? Is that actually how I want to show up in the world? Is it me saying the story of that's just how I am? Because when we're in that, then we're instantly like, okay, cool. I'm in the denial component there. So we go back to those components of self-deception, of denial, complacency, and identifying as the master, I'm in that denial component then. So when we have that understanding of, okay, am I in denial right now? Okay, am I being complacent right now? Am I identifying as the master? Do I know this already? Okay, cool. Now I can take a step back and go, all right, am I in one of these three things? And can I actually prove that to someone else without me actually going into story? Because in most instances, when I'm asking those questions, the instant reaction again is, yeah, that's just the way that I am. And then we actually start to dive deeper down behind that and ask those questions and go into that inquiry again and again and again. We actually start to open up this realm of possibility for us. And this is ultimately what we're looking at getting to. We're looking at creating possibility rather than just going from our patterns, from our mask, from our act that we live our entire life by. In most instances, obliviously. Like I was exactly the same. I started out and I was like, oh, that's not who I truly am. Oh, okay. But then when I tuned in and actually looked back and went, okay, that is definitely not who I truly am. That was a pattern. And only I can know that deep down. And what happens when you become triggered by someone is like, okay, cool. There's something alive in me now, which I'm resisting, which is creating a sensation in my body that I'm labeling as a trigger, which means that there's something which I've disowned in me, some mask that I've put on in some way that I don't want to be removed because that's part of my identity. That's what's safe for me. So then we just go into a coping mechanism of projection or all of these different things. When the reality is that's just something that's come up in me that I get to look at. That's a mask that's been created unconsciously by me. I might not necessarily know what that is straight away. It's just an indication of, okay, cool, there's potentially work that I can do here. And if I do that work, then that's going to allow me to actually evolve into a more authentic version of who I am. So
yeah, and it's not easy to do this. I think I'd be interested if you could give me an example for you, because you know what people love. They love seeing masters like you call things out on yourself. And just so you know, I love Cody. Cody and I have a great relationship. He's probably one of the only people that triggers me more than Nathan Ahern. It's like these two people that trigger me. So, in fact, you've even been called the human trigger before, haven't you?
Yeah.
You have. One of our first conversations, I walked away and went, wow, this guy's triggering. He told me to quit it was funny, I hadn't quit corporate then. And you're like, what's holding you back? Just jump in, quit, do it. And I'm like, oh, hate that guy. Meanwhile, it was the best thing I ever did when I finally did it. But yeah, I do remember that conversation. You're fully in it. And you know, I called you up. Do you remember I called you up and said, Cody, I've been making you wrong. I can't even look at you online because of that. You so called me out on my own story about not being able to leave corporate. And so I from that moment on, I was just like, I wonder why you trigger me so much. And I think it is you tell me truths about myself I don't want to face, that I can easily hide. You can easily hide behind, I just, don't have any time and I don't have any money and, I could easily hide. But you see it and you call it out. So what is it how do you make sure that you are getting called out for yourself? Like give me an example when you last did.
Again, it comes back to those two processes that we can go through of like self-inquiry or working with a coach. So like for me, because I've worked with so many coaches, I can understand what my normal patterns are. Being a coach, one of the core patterns that I have is deflection. It's like I'll deflect away from what's actually going on for me to instantly flip it back to the other person. I can instantly take charge of a conversation, flip it back to the other person, which means that it's no longer about me, it's about that person, which means that just becomes an act because it's me not being true to what is actually coming up for me. It's putting on an act for me to be okay, for me to be the strong one, which inherently then creates almost a lack of trust with people. So that just becomes like one of the patterns that I start to notice play out for me. We all have like similar patterns which consistently show up for us because that's what allow us to be safe. And when we can actually create awareness around that and actually go and do the work on that, then we can actually start to be like, okay, normally right now I would instantly deflect out to something else. Now I'm just going to actually, okay, what is true for me right now? How can I actually be real with myself right now rather than flipping it so that it's not focused on me. And this happens a lot with a lot of coaches. I love the quote that often when you need to be the teacher, it's because you're too afraid to be the student. And that hits me really hard. That quote every single time just hits me really hard, because it's like, okay, cool. How many areas of my life do I need to be the teacher? Do I need to be the person who's sharing on this, rather than actually looking internally and going, okay, let's see where I'm at with this right now. As I talk about even the conversation of leadership, it's like, okay, cool. Where am I at in my self-leadership process, and what's the next level of evolution of that? Because if I have it together in a leadership context, or have that perception, I've instantly created another mask for me to actually not do my internal work. And when I can have that understanding of right, that's a natural tendency, this is the evolution of what can show up there, how do I start to return to that and actually go to that questioning and going, okay, cool, what is actually true for me right now? Am I in one of my strategies? What are my normal strategies that allow me to stay safe? Is it projection? Is it suppression? Is it repression? Is it deflection? Is it avoidance? All of these different things are just strategies and flavors for which we can actually get into and act, rather than be truly seen. Because the real fear of us is to be actually truly seen. We want to be seen a certain way, but to be truly seen with what is really going on for us is the most fearful thing for us. It's why intimate relationships is so triggering, because they see you in more ways than anyone else actually can. It's the same thing with kids. They call you on all of these things as well. They see you for who you truly are. It's like your intimate partner and your kids. They're the two areas where everything comes to the surface, because people actually just call you forward in that. So yeah.
Absolutely. And it's as you're sitting here, it's so funny when you have these conversations, all the stuff that's there sort of shows up. And I'm noticing just how my hair is so fluffy since Corona, COVID. I have to get my hairdresser, and I've got, they have to work something out that I go in next week, and it's really overdue. And so I'm noticing myself do this, because that's my favorite side of my head, because this one is way too fluffy and doesn't make me look good. So whereas I wouldn't even notice it if you hadn't said it. It's this is how I feel I look better.
Yeah, I do that as well. I've got one of my teeth here is just out of line on this side. So whenever I'm in photos, I'm always just all right, cool. All right, I've got to be on this side, so it looks good. It looks better that way, right?
That's why your green face is like this.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the same thing with the branding. It's all green. It's my color. And I can tell myself that it's all my color and all these different things. It's the heart chakra. It's all amazing. And then it's okay, what's in? Yeah.
I see. I know it is. It's that's why it's so and I think there's one thing to point out as well. There's nothing wrong with it. It's actually the beauty is in owning it. It's not wrong to be someone that is, puts on these masks, and it's actually human. We have that ability to kind of show up however we want to show up and practice it. And I think, one of the things I've discovered at least is, and I'll be interested in what your thoughts on, that you kind of can be anyway. And that's it's a absolute magic of being a human being, but also the curse. Because when you haven't dealt with your stuff and owned stuff, it does make it hard to be anyway. Because it's I can't show up as powerful if I'm not owning that I'm being a jerk to people around me. But once you own you're being a jerk, you can actually show up being powerful. It's quite interesting. And it's even simple things like you just did, I got this thing of my tooth, and it's me with my hair. It's being able to own that is the being myself. It's the owning the fact that I'm just like anyone else. I do care about looking good. I'm all about authenticity, and I've discovered authenticity isn't perfection. But without owning that, I've got no freedom to be any other way. I feel I'm kind of stuck here having to try to look good without saying it. It's almost like a trap in a way. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. One of the core components is communication creates completion. So when you can communicate something that's going on internally for us, then it instantly becomes complete, because it goes from monologue running in our head in a looping process of us actually playing that out to dialogue. creates this completion cycle in our mind so that we can actually start to be like, okay, cool, this is what I was doing, and this was my intention behind it. My intention was to look good by hiding this side of my face, because then I can actually connect with people and I can be seen a certain way. And when we actually do that, what occurs is we can start to create that realness of who we truly are, rather than who we're looking to be seen as. It becomes through that communication that actually creates that completion of it. So if we don't share it with other people, then it's just running internally for us, which is actually just instantly diminishing our relationship with ourselves. And as we go back to the point before that as well, of this mask and this act is really actually required for each of us as well, to actually learn who we truly are. If we don't have this experience of actually putting on an act, we can't actually have the capacity to understand who we are at our core essence, because then we don't have the contrasting experience. We live in a world of duality right now, so we need to actually experience the contrast of something to create the appreciation for who we actually are and the gifts that we actually get to bring to the world. When I'm talking to people, it's like every single person has this unique gift that they get to bring to the world. And to determine what this is, I test people's epigenetics to see what that is based on their biology. And when we understand that, we can actually see this person has some gifts to bring to the world. And the only way that they can actually bring these to the world is actually return to the understanding of who they are and become at peace with who they are. Because when they're at war with who they are, they're looking to be seen a certain way, then there's just this internal battle which is going on with them, this internal war, which creates all this stress and upset for them. And ultimately, most people want to be happy. Most people want to have this experience of internal peace. Most people want to connect with people. Most people want to do all of these different things. And we can only really do that on the deepest level by actually owning who we truly are and actually loving who we truly are at our core essence, including our masks, including our acts, including all of these things, including the strategies, because then we can actually just truly be with our humanness and actually understand that's part of what is actually needed for our evolution as well, for who we actually need to be in the world. We need to actually know who we're not. We need to know, okay, that doesn't actually align with me. I need to actually experience that to go, okay, no, I don't want to experience that. I don't want to be a part of that. I'm going to choose to be over here because this feels good to me. It feels good throughout my entire being, rather than just like intellectually, rather than being seen as something, rather than being validated by something externally. It becomes this deepening of our internal relationship with ourselves, actually getting to the point of being okay with who we are at our core essence, getting to the point of accepting who we are at our core essence, and then getting to the point of actually loving who we are at our core essence, and going through that process to actually start to create that capacity to see all of the unique gifts that only we can bring to the world. And when we actually own the gifts that we can bring to the world, everything shifts for us. We can actually start to get into that conversation that I consistently talk about around flow. When we're in flow, we're actually just being who we truly are at our core essence, and things instantly become magnetized towards us. When we're in flow, we're fully real, we're fully raw, we're actually being that expression of authenticity for us. They're actually very much aligned. It's just different language, as you said, like before this. It's like we're going to be talking about things that a lot of people talk about with different language, and it comes back to the same thing. Human nature is quite predictable. And when we can actually be in that experience of being raw, being real, being authentic, then that actually creates the capacity for us to get into flow. And that comes from that place of actually fully expressing ourselves, who we are based on our core essence, outside of the acts, and knowing at the same time that we'll return to those acts at some point, because that will be how we actually start to develop that deeper relationship with ourselves. When we can develop that deeper relationship with ourselves, we can only do that through determining and discerning what is me and what is not me. We need to go through that process of experiencing that contrast to go from there back into this is me. This is in alignment with me. This is in alignment with my biology and what I'm here to create in this lifetime. And when I can actually create that, it's like, cool, I'm going to move forward here, and everything else just becomes filtered out. It's like, I don't want that. That's not aligned with me. That's not aligned with me. I'm here. This is what I'm here for, and I'm going to create this in my lifetime. And I'm going to come from this place of bringing my unique, innate gifts that only I can bring to the world and create this world of contribution, which links back into what I'm all about, is creating that superhuman society when everyone starts to come from that place of bringing their unique, innate gifts to the world, so that we can actually live from that epigenetic genius that we all come from to create a world of contribution. And that all stems back to our ability to actually fully self-express ourselves, and also have the understanding that at times we'll step back into that mask, into that act, into that strategy. So
It's great. I'm just going to summarize what you said because it's gold. It really is gold. It's like, we asked that question. I'll put it up here again. How often are you really being yourself? And I'm gonna come back to these comments because we've got some great comments there as well that I want to talk on. But I'm just going to summarize what you said, right? Essentially, we asked the question, how often are you really being yourself? And essentially what I can hear is a lot of the time we're wearing masks, and if you're not practicing catching it, you could almost assert that most of the time you're wearing one. And I know that I am thinking you're not, which is kind of a bit of a paradox because it does feel and think and seem like you are, but actually what you're doing is holding yourself out to be a particular way and protecting the way that you look to the outside world, but not allowing yourself to fully be seen, fully show people what you are thinking, feeling, experiencing. But it's in the owning all of that you get the freedom. It's in the owning and expressing that and testing it out and trying it that you actually get the freedom that you fully desire, because you get trapped by having to feel as though you have to be seen a particular way. And I know myself, it's like, I know that the experience of before you do get authentic, Siri is going mental. Stop it. Okay. He's like, what was that? What was that? I'm like crossing it out. I know the experience of that. Actually, like I was just listening to you going, for 33 years, I always thought that I was being me, and I wasn't. What is going on with this? And it's like, I just go, it's the Illuminati. Illuminati's in my computer. But for 33 years, I actually believed I was being myself, and I wasn't. I was protecting a view that I needed to be seen as better than other people, that I was smart and intelligent, and that I had it all together. I had the perfect wife, the perfect life, the perfect house. I lived in corporate. I worked in corporate. I hated my job, but I still worked there, and despite the fact that I was suppressed by saying it, all of this stuff. And that was me being me. But it was when I started acknowledging that I too wear masks, that I too am full of shit. I say that jokingly, but I was. That I too have to be seen a particular way, that actually, if you really look at it, I'm being a superior asshole because I'm too afraid of you seeing that actually all I want to do is break down and cry because I don't get what I really want. And it was then that I was able to go and be free about that, right? And what I can hear in what you're saying is it's like just owning the mask. It's always there, is actually the access to what's next. It's like, okay, that's not me. That's the contrast. Okay, I can grow from that. But if you deny the mask, you don't get that growth. If you deny that it's there, it's like, so how often are we not being ourselves? Who knows? If you're not doing the looking, probably never being yourself. That's what I can hear you saying. And I just want to acknowledge some of these comments. We've got some amazing comments here. I'm going right the way back. You've got this amazing woman here called Jackie Mink. She's so engaging. I like her.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Masks, uniform. So Lorna says mask, uniform, each has a purpose. However, neither should be necessary. True, they're not wrong. But yeah, they can be, they've got a purpose and they can be constraining. Sky says, I fucking love people owning their humanness. So do I. Chris, all the humanists, and the humanist is so powerful. Amanda Burnett, hello Amanda Burnett. It's our own personal trap because most people don't even notice and are more worried about their own. It's true. What we think people care about, they don't really. They're too worried about themselves. Jackie thinks epigenetics is amazing. I wonder why. Epigenetics is amazing. She might be into it a bit too.
Maybe.
Maybe. What else have we got here? Once you tap in, you've got it for life. It's true. Once you actually start distinguishing that, would you say that as well? You kind of can't stop. You kind of start to see yourself pretending all the time. Nailed it. Thanks, Josh. Good to see you, Josh. And Jackie, I love her comments. She's great. She's like so in your corner. Superhuman society. Everyone's utilizing their unique epigenetic expression to contribute to humanity. Woo! She's like,
I love it.
She's full fanboy. Fangirl, I should say. Oh my God, just so relatable. When we realize we're not break down the barriers freely to express, totally resonate. Absolutely. You know, anything you want to add to that, to those comments that you saw there, Cody?
No, probably just the only thing to add would be when we're looking at like who we are, we're looking at the paradoxical nature of that as well, which is we're always being ourselves, and we're also returning to who we truly are at our core essence. So when we're in the experience of being in one of our masks, that's the portal, the gateway for us to actually return to who we truly are at our core essence. And we can only learn that through these masks, through these acts. And when we actually start to look into those things and actually start to go through the process of owning both that we're in a mask and we're both authentic, and consistently choosing to come from this place of actually being the authentic version of ourselves and actually being true to what is actually going on for us, then we can actually start to shift in our life. We actually go through the understanding that a mask or an act is the gateway to our growth. When we actually create that context for it, everything begins to shift for us. We can actually see the inherent meaning and purpose within our acts, so that we can actually start to utilize them to actually go down that growth pathway. And at the same time, who we are right now is who we truly are, because the truth of who we are is both that we're authentic and someone who wears a mask. When we're actually that whole person, then that begins to shift everything for us. If we're just trying to be just authentic all of the time, then we're really creating a mask over the top of it, calling it authenticity. So it becomes this process of actually starting to go, yes, it's okay for me to be in my mask, in my act. And now that I'm aware that I'm doing that, I can make another choice to return to a deeper level of understanding of who I am at my core essence, and actually start to create from that place, because that actually just starts to light us up inside. When we learn who we are on the even deeper level, it actually feels really good. It's like, oh my God, I didn't know that about myself. And that's such amazing for me to start to learn that. And that's ultimately what one of our core needs is. It's that need for growth, that need to learn who we truly are and actually deepen that relationship. As soon as we think that relationship is done, we end up just sabotaging ourselves and losing our lust for life. And when we can actually like continue that relationship, continue that drive for growth, that lust for life, everything shifts for us. Life feels amazing, and we actually just have all of those needs met, and everything just becomes effortless for us. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really it's I think what I can hear is we started off, like I said, with that question. What I can hear is, are we always, no, the answer is, are we really being ourselves? Maybe not. We're both being ourselves, and always connecting to this higher self. And there is some dance of that, and being someone that is interested in looking for where we're pretending. Trying to be authentic all the time actually is a bit of a catch-22, because it become a mask. And it's in the constant work of it. It's like really looking all the time. So what tools do you have for people? Like, what sort of tools can people use? Because I know I've got Chris going, yes, epigenetic expression now too. He's like on the epigenetics. So obviously I don't know much about epigenetics, apart from I have a few people in my sphere that sort of say, you should get it done. It's really good. So tell me a bit about that. Like, what tools can people use to really look at this?
So when I'm testing people's epigenetics, I'm looking at what their biology is set up for. So if there are certain people will have biology which is set up better for certain tasks than other people. Like if you're shorter, you're more likely in most instances to be a lot better at sales, because you're more likely to have more testosterone in your body. So you like the challenge of sales. So there are certain tendencies of how we can actually understand people's biology, which creates their hormonal expression. We can actually start to go, okay, what hormones are going to be best for this actual job? Or we can actually create that alignment between someone with their biology and what they're actually doing. Everything shifts for them. It creates this instant deep level of self-awareness. Self-awareness is the starting point to be able to get around to self-expression. And when we can actually understand who someone is and create that level of self-awareness around their biology, because our biology is created, it's our vehicle for what we're creating in this lifetime. So if we understand the vehicle in that instance, then we can actually start to create with that flavor through our life based on what our biology is actually set up for. Now, alternatively, if we go against our biology, then we may be able to get some results. It's just going to be draining for us. It's going to take all of this energy rather than build our energy up. So when we can create alignment between our biology and what we're actually here to create through our work, through our expression, through all of these different things, it just becomes so much easier for us. And then we can actually start to bring the unique gifts that only we can bring to the world, because our biology is set up for what we're here to create in the world, because our body will create the capacity for us to change things in certain ways. Based on where I sit epigenetically, I'm more likely to trigger people because I speak truth in certain ways which other people don't respond to effectively in some instances. So some people love it, some people don't, which instantly creates this understanding of that. And when I know that, that means I can be really, really, really good at coaching people. And at the same time, there's going to be people that are just completely switched off to me that just like, no, I'm not ready for that. And then they just take a step back. So when I can understand
you a year ago,
I
was like, whoa.
Yeah. And then like when I know that about myself, I can actually just be okay with that, because I understand that that's just a strategy by someone, and my strategy might be deflection. That could be their strategy. When I can actually just be with someone when they're in their strategies, then I can actually just truly be with someone with what is raw and real for them right then. I can be with them in their authenticity, so that I can then actually do the same thing for me. Like as soon as we start to make other people being in their triggers wrong or anything like that, or us being in our triggers being wrong, all that we're really doing is creating more of that internal war, rather than just being like, okay, this person's in a trigger right now, and I can just hold them in that, and I can see them in that, and I can just be with them in that. And that's ultimately what we all want. We don't want to be, no one wants to be changed. Everyone just wants to be, have the understanding that it's actually okay for us to be who we truly are, even as our shit comes up. That's how we start to shift those things. So
you could say that it's actually a part of being yourself, is being the flip side of who you are. I think you have actually said that. So it's like you're not this, you're in that trigger, and even the expressing of that is also a part of you, and it's not you at the same time. And it's being held in that and being seen in that, and being allowing people around you to just be okay with it yourself too. I know that was one of the biggest learnings for me, was when I was acting like a complete nutcase. It was like, that's also a part of me being human. You know, my housemate gets it the most, and we also work together. So, you know, every now and then I just react, and she's great. She just goes, I think you're doing that thing where you react. And I'm like, no, I'm not, it's you. And then I'm like, okay, right, it's me. But we have that kind of relationship where we just allow each other to be that way. And it isn't always easy, but, you know, when she's doing it and I get it, you know, we have to being with it is sometimes has that kind of experience with it. It's like a bit challenging. You tend to take it personally a bit. You kind of, you know, question your own thinking and stuff like that. But we've got such a great relationship, we're able to let it go. But because we do that, and because we're constantly looking at it, we're developing relationships around us and friendships, and influencing our families to sort of see it that way as well, which ultimately then our whole, proximity, if you want to use that word, but our whole environment starts to be people interested in their own masks because we did it. So it does have really great impacts. And I'll just mention a couple of you've got some fans here, Cody.
That's good.
It's Jackie Mink. You should get tested, Jess Claire and Chris Terrell. Just do it. Oh my God, getting sold into a program on one of my own lives. That's great. I have always wanted to do it, and I can't imagine me having any more energy. But I suppose it's possible. Imagine what I could accomplish with more energy. I've already got a TV channel. I run a social media school. I have a charity here on purpose. I'm like, yeah, let's throw in another business. 3 is not enough.
Why not?
And that's without epigenetics testing. What could you do for me, Cody?
Amazing.
I know. Our body is created for our purpose. That's interesting. That is actually a really good point too. And Amanda says, strengths come from more than biology. So many people are, Anastasia says, so many people are dishonest. You can't put a price on authenticity. Absolutely. Danelle says, nice, no external interruption. Yes. And Chris says, you would legit be superhuman. Now I'm in. And look, what time is it? I think we've been going, it's 7:00. So we'll probably wrap up now. So, are there any last thoughts or anything you'd like to say? Have you got any? I started talking to you after I took myself off, even though I knew you couldn't. So I don't think anyone else can hear me. What was the last thing you heard?
You're like, is there anything else? And then it's just like, and I'm like, is she still talking? I'm not sure.
I said, have you got, so people can get in contact with you? Sorry, Cody. You did say, I can't hear you if you take yourself off. Am I trying to make it look really cool? And then you can't even hear me. Yeah. So how do people come and see you if they want to get epigenetics tested, or have you got any programs, any leadership things coming up that people can get involved in?
Yeah, the best thing to do would be to either just reach out to me on Facebook. You'll be able to find me with the green branding. And the only other thing is they can join my Facebook group called the Leadership Container. There's going to be a 4-day self-leadership challenge starting in there next week. So, and that's the first place I've actually announced it online. So I was meant to announce that tomorrow, but you guys get it first. Just realize that because it launches tomorrow. Cool. So they're the two best ways to be able to get in contact with me. So.
Great. If you can put the links in this live too, just so people can easily access your leadership container and that 4-day challenge that you're doing, that would be awesome. Someone just said, well, that was awkward. It was, wasn't it? It was the awkward mask. Well, I keep talking, you can hear me, and then we come back and I'm like, why is he looking at me funny? It's interesting. She's silently staring at me. But this is what it is to be authentic. Life is messy. Yep. Having a mask is so not fun. It's awkward, and then you go away going, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. How will I ever do this again? It's so much more fun when you can own how messy and awkward you really are. Awesome. By the sounds of it, I might have to contact you myself, Cody. I'm really interested to see if I could have any more energy. I'm tapped. I guess we have to. Yeah, I eat a lot of KFC chicken, which is probably not. I'm like to say that maybe that's my epigenetics. Maybe I'm built to have lots of KFC chicken. Anyway,
some people are epigenetically meant to be carnivores, so they can't actually be vegan. Otherwise, they get into chronic burnout. So maybe that's you. Never know.
Don't know that being a carnivore includes KFC.
KFC specifically.
But yeah, I'll be interested to see. But thank you so much. Everyone is saying thank you to you. Thank you, Cody, for everything that you do. I know that this is much higher purpose for you, and it's really making a difference so people get the freedom and the kind of freedom that they get to show up and be who they really want to be in life. So thank you for being someone that's interested in that and partnering me in that. And thank you everyone who did show up and leave comments tonight and say great stuff, and people are putting some awesome things on here. Thanks, Chris, for also advocating for me doing epigenetics. And thanks again, Cody, and everyone that tuned in. And you guys have an amazing night. Siri is still talking to me. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Siri. Could I give her a special mention as well? So.
Thanks, Siri. She's back.
Thanks for putting this on.
Yes. All right. Thanks, Cody. Thanks, guys. See you later.